Happy New Year. I wanted to make this video as a response to the last video that I did talking about why I got fired from my job. And I logged into my new account just a few days ago and I saw the views. And honestly, I was really surprised. I had to literally do a double take and then I had to do a triple take. And I was like, okay. So I'm glad that that video did make some traction. So thank you to everybody who watched and commented. If you commented respectfully, okay, there were some people who commented and they were a bit upset with me for having a different opinion than something they would have done probably. And I will say, in situations like that, you never really know what you're going to do until you're in that situation. It's very easy to say what you would or would not do. But going forward, I just ask that if you disagree with me, that's completely okay. It's even healthy to have disagreement, but please do so respectfully. Please don't name call, okay? We're adults. We can handle ourselves a lot better than that. So I want to get into the comments that people left, and I summarized the comments because I can't read through each and every one. And a lot of the comments were in the same category, but just worded differently. So I'll go through that. If you haven't watched the last video, I will summarize basically what happened. So at my last job, they got metal detectors in the building. It was surprisingly, right? Because I didn't expect them to get these metal detectors. They never issued anything in writing to anybody that these metal detectors were coming. And I had no notice of it, not even in meetings. So I can't go through metal detectors. I could, but the last time I went through a metal detector, it made me sick. It caused a really sharp pain in the right side of my head, and I felt mentally off. Literally all day that day, I felt off. So if you haven't watched that video, please go back and watch my first video, and I talk more in detail about that. But when my job had brought these metal detectors in, I explained to them what metal detectors do to me. And despite all of that, they were like, yeah, you need to go through the metal detector or we're going to have to separate, meaning that they were going to fire me. So I didn't go through the metal detector and I was fired. Okay. So that caused a lot of people to be really upset in the comment section, or seemingly. I mean, it came across that way, even if you were like, "Oh, I wasn't upset. I was just saying, okay, but some of the comments did come across that way, right? Especially if you got into the area of name calling. So anyway, we're gonna be more respectful going forward. Great. All right. So I want to get into a summary of the comments that were more positive, right? Or and when I say that, more aligned with what I think. Okay. And don't worry, I'm going to also address the comments that had a contrary opinion to mine. Okay, so there were some people who said people are no longer seen as an asset in companies nowadays. I absolutely agree. The job market is pretty crazy. You have a lot of people, probably hundreds of applications per job for a lot of different positions, especially if it's a good company in a well paying position. Okay, it's very competitive in the job market today, right? So maybe some companies, and I'm not saying all companies are like that, but perhaps some companies see people as more disposable because they know if you mess up, they can very easily replace you, unfortunately. And what I noticed a lot with different companies that I have worked for, they will advertise the company as being like a family, right? You're like family here. And I saw somebody made that comment where they said a lot of these companies will say you're like family. Absolutely, they will. But when it boils down to the bottom line, they're going to do what's best for them a lot of the time, right? And that whole family thing, it goes out of the window. So, another comment that I really wanted to address where some people mentioned that the employer should have given me a reasonable deadline to comply. Absolutely. I had literally 30 seconds to make a decision. They were like, you have to go through the metal detector right now or you're terminated. That's pretty much what happened. And I was put on the spot. I had all eyes on me, and I was like, what am I going to do? I don't know. Like, I value my health. Okay. So I had to make a decision in that moment. I'm like, I know what this metal detector did to me. So I was like, well, do I go through or do I not go through? Do I risk having that happen to me again? Right. And listen, one thing I want to address, because it's almost like reading some of the comments, people took it personally. They were like, it was almost like you were thinking, and I'm not saying you were thinking this, maybe some of you were, that I was saying that there is a moral issue with going through a metal detector in general. And no, this had to do everything with my personal values. Okay. So it doesn't make you a bad person if you don't go through a metal detector, if you don't have any conviction about it, or if you don't feel any negative effects. So I just want to make that very clear. And there were a lot of you who wished me well going forward, and you gave me kudos for standing up for my beliefs. And that means a lot because it wasn't an easy decision to make, but it was the decision that I felt led to do in my spirit and what was best for my health. I want to get into the comments where people disagreed with me. And again, healthy disagreement is completely okay. So I want to address that. Okay, so the first comment, and this was one of the comments that were near the top. One person said, you can't self diagnose. This has nothing to do with your morals or values. Um, they are my morals and my values for a reason. Okay, it has everything to do with my values. I value my health. Therefore, I decided not to go through the metal detector. Okay. And like I said earlier, if you go through a metal detector and it doesn't negatively affect you and you don't feel any conviction in your spirit, then do what you believe is best for you. Okay. And at the end of the day, I'm going to do what I believe is best for me. And you can't self diagnose. I never diagnosed. Okay. I explained how it made me feel and why I wasn't comfortable going through the metal detector. I never said this is the diagnosis. I never did that. And another thing I want to mention is that everybody's body is different, right? Just like I mentioned, it may not bother you, but it may bother other people. And one of the things I noticed with my body in particular is that I tend to feel things a lot quicker uh, than what people usually around me may feel. And what I mean by that is if somebody is coughing, for example, right, a lot of times I'll feel a little tickly in my throat and almost immediately. Now, some of you may be listening, oh, here we go again. It's all in your head. It's not. And I'll give you one example to tell you why. So, at the job that I was recently terminated from, there was a guy that I worked with. He was acting very different, right? And nobody knew what was wrong with him. We thought he might had been upset or something. So anyway, I had end up speaking to him later, and he came over by me, and I think I had some kind of question about the work, and he came over to my desk and he was explaining some things, and I thanked him. And as soon as he left, my throat started feeling weird. Now, this guy, he wasn't even coughing or anything, so nobody knew he was sick. And I was like, my throat feels weird. Like he came close to me, and I was like, oh my gosh, I feel weird. Like I have to do something about this tickly feeling in my throat. So, come to find out later that day, it did end up turning out that he was sick. Okay. So, my body tends to detect things a lot faster, probably than what other people would detect. And I think one reason, possibly, right, is due to the fact that I lived in a very rural area in the middle of nowhere for over 4 years. I recently moved to a more populated area a year ago. So when I lived in that area, there was very little radiation. I was surrounded by trees and nature and animals, fresh, clean air, fresh, clean water. So it took a lot of adjusting for my body to get used to living in a populated area. And that could have something to do with it. But even before I moved to a populated area, or even before I lived in the middle of nowhere, my body still was very sensitive to certain things. I can't keep my laptop directly on my lap. And that started before I moved to that rural area because I noticed if it's on my lap for too long, I'll start to feel weird, right? Like not well, mentally foggy. And I think our bodies are naturally supposed to be able to detect very quickly when something is not right. But if you have gotten used to being around radiation, eating certain kinds of food, and experiencing different outside threats that are not good for your body, then you become accustomed to it, and it may not bother you immediately. The radiation level is going to be a lot stronger when you're going through a metal detector because these machines were literally designed to detect metal. So, getting into the next comment, there were some people who were saying that the cell towers emit massive radiation and that I'm surrounded by radiation everywhere I go. Absolutely. Radiation is all in the air if you live in a more populated area, but it's not the same thing as, like I said, being directly under a metal detector that emits a lot more radiation than just the standard radiation you experience in the air. Now, one thing I want to mention, when I lived in the very rural area, I had gone into town, and as I was driving in town, I noticed that all of a sudden I had gotten a massive headache. And it was just like a sharp pain went through my head as I was driving. And I was looking around trying to figure out, why did that happen? Where did that come from? And when I looked up, I saw this big 5G tower. And I was like, okay, let me move out of this area. And when I did, my head started to feel a lot better. So I don't even have a 5G phone. Okay. And the phone that I do have, if I hold it in my hand for an extended period of time, I notice that my body starts to feel weird. I have to make all kinds of accommodations and adjustments in my personal life to help me deal with this sensitivity that I have to radiation. Okay, this is not something that I just made up in my head because I wanted to be this different person who didn't go through a metal detector. And I know that there were people who were denigrating me for my decision. And at the end of the day, I know that I have to live in my body 24/7. You don't. So I have to look out for the best interest of my own personal health. Okay. And just as well, you do. If there's something that you eat or something that you experience and you notice that your body is not responding positively to it, why would you keep doing that? Why would you continue to do what you know made you not feel well? If you are coughing due to maybe something you ate that made you sick, or somebody you were around, maybe they had a cough and you started to not feel well, next time you're coughing, and this is for the people who were giving me a hard time for not going through the metal detector. Next time you're coughing, next time you're under the weather and you're not feeling well, and somebody tells you it's all in your head, you're crazy, you're wacko, remember that. You're going to be like, wait a minute, I know how I feel. I know what made me sick. It was that little coughing baby that I was around, right? Or it was that food I ate from that restaurant. I'm just saying, our bodies feel things, and it's important for us to be able to listen to our bodies. Now, I want to wrap up and get into a few more of the comments. Some people were asking why I didn't have a doctor's note. I rarely ever have to go through a metal detector, right? I probably have gone through a metal detector maybe up to 3 times a year. And every single time I was able to opt out, meaning they were able to do a pat down for me. Sometimes they may give you a hard time and say, "Oh my gosh, like it's okay to go through the metal detector," right? But I've gone through the metal detector at the courthouse because there were some people who were saying, "Well, hospitals, courthouses, and airports, they all have metal detectors. What are you going to do?" I literally have gone to all three within the last year, and I've always been able to do a pat down. They've always pat me down and let me come in. So it's never been a problem anywhere that I have gone. As a matter of fact, organizations are required by law to provide reasonable accommodation. Just FYI, okay? So I never had a problem going forward. Am I going to make sure that that's something that I take care of pretty soon here? Absolutely. I'm going to, go see a doctor and, see what they can do so that I don't have to keep being hassled for not being able to go through a metal detector. Oh, and I don't know if I mentioned this one already, but there were some people who were saying, well, the mic that you're wearing has the same type of radiation. It doesn't. A big metal detector that's literally designed to detect metal obviously is going to have a lot more radiation than a little mic that you're wearing. Okay. And maybe that is something that I will look out for in the future, seeing for another placement of my mic going forward. I feel okay. I don't feel any negative effect of it, but you all bring up some good points. So again, thank you for all of your comments. And listen, I just want to wrap this video up. At the end of the day, you are responsible for your own health and your own well being. Okay. Everybody could have their own different opinion about what you should or what you shouldn't do. At the end of the day, you are responsible for your health and well being. If something happens as a result of you doing something that everybody else is telling you you should do, you are left to try to clean up the effects, the negative effects of that decision you made. And I will also say that I do believe that God allowed that door to close. I think God allowed that door to close. Shortly after all of that had happened, even feeling surprised by the decision they had made to terminate me, shortly after that, I felt a calm come over me. It was almost like my spirit was telling me that everything's going to be okay. Even before I had gone back into work when I was on my lunch break that day I got fired, I was in prayer. I had made an effort throughout my lunch break to make sure that I was praying. And every morning, I made sure to pray, read my word, spend time with God so that I could make sure that I was able to hear from God. Because we never know what we're going to encounter on any given day. When we go out those doors, and sometimes even before we go out those doors, we don't know what we're going to encounter. It's so important to make sure that we are prayed up, we are in our word, and that we are sensitive to hearing the voice of the Holy Spirit. So that way, if something does happen and it comes as a surprise to you, you are still making the best decision that is aligned with the will of God for your life. So instead of being fear led, it's so important that we make sure that we are Holy Spirit led. Make sure the Spirit of God is guiding your life. But in order to be able to hear clearly from the Holy Spirit, it's very important that when we do sense that God is speaking to us, that we listen. And the more we listen, the louder that voice becomes. So, anyway, I hope that I did address most of the questions that were left in the comment on my last video. And again, thank you for everybody who watched and who have watched this video. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your encouragement. I would appreciate your prayers. But that is all for this video. And until the next video, thank you so much. God bless you. I love you. And I'll see you next time.